So, Marcia, I said to the others that if there's anything that you want to know, I mean, there's things that I can show, but
Right.
if there's questions that you have or anything that you want to know or topics or anything, I'd rather go through, your
Well,
suggestions.
the one question I have that like I may have said this to you before, I'm gonna have to address either that or maybe we can address it with the kids when you talk to them about using that, or if we're gonna have any kind of seminar for them on the first day or so.
Hmm.
I noticed that I had a lot of trouble when I went through Sapphire. Like I did one thing with Sapphire that was a test review sheet. And when I did that and I had them turn it in, if anybody did it on Google Docs, there was an issue. I couldn't open it up.
Okay.
So I had to tell the kid to redo it or copy and paste it on a Word document and put it in. So, because it kept saying this warning kept kind of saying that it doesn't support that and it won't open it. So I just want to make sure I don't care
Oh,
if the
okay.
kids do it on their iPad. That's not a problem with me.
Yep.
And I will try not to put that stuff on Sapphire. I'd rather just put it on Google Classroom because then it's easier whether they do it on one or the other. I can open it up. It doesn't matter whether they do it on Word or Google Docs. But I got to make sure for me, unless there's something that we can put on my new computer or on here or something that will recognize that, because for some reason it will not recognize it and it just says it cannot be opened.
Okay. All right. So for that one, the reason the reason why it can't be opened has to do with the way the students are sharing it. Rather than giving you the link, they're trying to attach it as a file, if that makes sense. But Google's documents aren't like a standard file type, like a .doc or a .pdf or something. It's like
Right. Yeah. And I guess
.gdoc or
that's what
something.
I guess that's what it is, because
Yeah.
it just won't open. It just says it doesn't recognize. Sapphire says it doesn't recognize it.
Right. So for that, if they share it the right way as a link, you should be able to open it just in the web browser. Um, if not, the new laptops might be able to um, understand it. I haven't tested it on those yet, so I'm not sure, but they might be able to open it.
Well, what I'll do is I'll sort of tell them that they need to do it as a Word document. I mean, and then we'll just try it on something innocuous later. And if it doesn't work, then I'll let you know.
Okay. All right. So, Joanne, we'll start with the test builder, and
Okay.
then if anybody has questions, just shout them out. Um, this is very informal. So, I'm in last school year because the new school year isn't open yet. Um, but here in the test builder, the first place it takes you is the My Tests tab. So this is the one where you start to create your tests or these are basically your drafts. They have not been assigned yet. Um, so here, in the title, you can kind of see if you give yourself a description. If you're working on multiples at a time, you can kind of see that there. So to make a new one, you would just click this blue Create New Test button, and then give it a name. The description here is optional. Just put the date in just so I can keep track. And then test scope. So what this means is whether or not other people within the school, like other teachers, can see your test. So if I just cancel this for 1 second, you see this other tab over here called district tests. So sometimes we might have a class, the same course is taught between two different teachers. Two teachers might have CP, bio, or something like that. Um, so if you were to work on that in the district tests and make it public, another teacher could make a copy of your test, or they could see the questions that you're asking. Um, so that would be an option. If you keep it private, nobody else can see your test. So there's not really a hard and fast rule. Just if there's something that you want to share with another teacher, then that you could make it public.
And Brian, you said that test scope is only for our school, correct?
Correct.
That's public for?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Only for our teachers. That word district is kind of like that's just their standard
Okay.
wording for that. If we were in a public school, the high school, middle school, and elementary school teachers could all see each other's. But for us, we're just our own isolated thing here in Sapphire. So if I go ahead and create that test, so now this will take you to the test designer. And what you can do from here is it gives you this one section automatically, and you can add questions within that section. If you wanted to, you could add groups and add, multiple separate sections if you wanted to divide your multiple choice from your matching questions or something like that. Sometimes when we do the paper tests, we divide them up in parts, so you could add a separate group, and let's say maybe this is say true false questions, and then you have this option whether or not you want to shuffle questions within this group. So you could shuffle maybe just these true and false, so they're not all in the same order, and then save it. And we have this section here, so I can edit this, and let's say maybe we'll call this section multiple choice. And you can choose whether or not you want to shuffle the questions in that section.
Will that actually save all the sections in that one test? Because what I did was I didn't know you could do this, and I ended up doing one section, completing the whole thing, and then adding another section. So you can actually add these sections, you're saying, Brian, and then go back in and put the questions in?
Mm-hmm.
Like set them up and then go back and put the questions? Okay.
Yep. You could do that if you wanted. So if you want to do sections, you don't even have to. You could put them all in one section, all your questions in one section if you wanted to. This was an option. So if you click here to add questions, it has all your question types. So the top ones are ones that are automatically graded. The bottom one, the essays, are ones you have to go back later and kind of review. And then you have this option down here to add from a question bank. So the question bank is, let me go back 1 second here to the test builder. All right, so on the main page, you have this tab here called My Question Bank. So anytime you create a test and you type those questions in, they're automatically saved to your question bank. So you could pull from these questions later on, creating tests for multiple sections or from one year to the next, whatever it might be. You could pull from those questions. For right now, at least, there's no easy way. Like if you have questions in a Word document or something like that, you can't import them from one place to another. The only way that these question bank questions get populated is by creating tests in Sapphire. Just so you kind of know. I wish it would have been a lot easier to just import questions, because most of us have tests made up or multiple versions of tests with a lot of different questions, but there's no way to, for right now at least, there's no way to import those.
When they, Brian, excuse me, when they go into those different ones like multiple choice or true false, can you go back in there and just pick one or two out and then throw them on a test? Is that what you're saying you can do? Oh,
Yep.
That's great. So then you could make basically different tests for different classes, and it wouldn't matter anyway. It's basically the same questions, or you could put different questions in and then not have to worry about retyping in like you're saying. Okay.
Okay, so if I go to add a question, you have your multiple choice questions. Now the title doesn't matter so much. The students don't really see that, so you can leave it as just this generic title that pops up. The only thing that I will say is if you are going to add a question from the question bank, you see the title of the question. So if these aren't very descriptive, like these ones here are not very descriptive, you're not really going to know, except, to expand each one. So just something to think about if this is something that you're going to continue to do either year after year or pull from that bank of questions. That's what the title is mostly for. It's going to give you an indication when you're pulling from that bank.
So in other words, you could put down, it might be about quantum physics. Is that what you're saying? You could put like a little subject matter down there, or you know,
Yep. So if you just do a
supply or
simple,
demand, and then that way you have an idea of that, is what you're saying. Now the
right,
kids won't see that, will they?
correct. They'll only see the
Okay.
question text. They won't see the title.
Okay.
So this is the question text would be where you would put your actual question.
Okay.
And when you click here, you'll see like it has all the formatting options. So, if you can copy and paste. So if you have things from a Word document, you could open that up and you can copy and paste the questions in here. So that would be an option, not a quick one, but it would be an option. You can also insert images, and you can embed media like a YouTube video or something like that. So if you wanted the kids to look at an image and respond to the image, or look at or watch a quick video clip and respond to it, you could embed all of that within the question. We did that for Diana Tice, I think it was, for Spanish, where the students had to listen to like an audio clip and then translate or answer questions based on what they heard. So that is an option. You also have some of the special symbols and characters. Again, for foreign language, you might need the accents on certain letters. Over here with the f of x symbol is insert equations, so you can put some of the math functions and symbols in there for a question. But again, there's really no way for the students to show their work, so it would just have to be probably like a multiple choice or essay style question for them.
Brian, question
Yeah.
for you.
Mhm.
You said you can do an insert the image. Where was that one again? Right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, can you insert it from like the internet, or is it something that you would need to copy, paste, manipulate, take a picture of it, and then to be able to insert it?
So I don't know if you can copy and paste, but you can, like if you find it on the internet. So it's this little one, the little square with the mountains in it.
Yeah.
If you go to insert a link, you could pull from the internet. The
Okay.
only catch would be like if you're finding it, let's say now, to prepare for a test that you might give at the end of September.
Okay.
If that website goes down, if that website pulls the image because you don't own it, you don't manage it, then that image won't be in the test.
Right.
So my suggestion would be to save the image to your computer and then upload it.
And what about manipulate? Like, because I often will use like diagrams that they need to label in biology. Can you manipulate the image once it's there, or is it better for me to save the image, manipulate it, like taking out more labels and stuff and putting in text boxes with A, B, C, D, and then uploading that?
Yeah, I would say to upload the final version because it's kind of, I've tried to work with pictures in here and it's not the easiest.
Okay.
So it might be easier to use like Google Drawings or another tool that you're used to to kind of edit it and then just put the final version up here.
Okay.
Yep, but that would work.
Thank you.
And then if you needed to manipulate any of the text, you can add bullet points, numbers, change the font style. You can even change the color if you wanted to. Whatever you wanted to there in the question text. And then here, total points. So you can, set these question by question if you're, let's say 2 points per question. And then here in the multiple choice, you can select if there's more than one correct answer. And you just put your answer text here with these options. And if you want more than 4, you can add, or if you only have 3 choices, you can remove the blanks, whatever that might be. Mark which answer is correct. So we can do, something like that. And we'll mark that one as correct. So then the answer value goes with it. And if you wanted to go answer by answer, you could give feedback for why each answer is incorrect or why this answer is correct. Or down here at the bottom, under the advanced section, you could just do general feedback. So rather than do 4 times over, you can just put general feedback. And later on, you'll see where you can select when the students will see that feedback. Down here, the answer format, usually ABC is our typical way that we go here. And we don't really have to worry about standards so much. So that's all you would have to do to set up that question. The only thing that I forgot to mention was this option here to shuffle answers. So what's nice is this is on a question by question basis. So one of the things, something to kind of be aware of is those questions where we have both A and B are correct or all of the above or whatever it might be. If you shuffle those answers, you don't know where those are going to wind up. So A and B could be, your first answer up here at the top. That could be letter A, or all of the above might be here in the middle column. So for those questions, you could just turn that off. But then a question like this, where you have 4 potentially correct answers, you could shuffle the order of just the answers. In addition,
you can do that per question then, that shuffle answer thing.
Yep. So you can
Brian,
do that.
how does that extra credit flag work? Does that work? Whereas if they get it correct, they get it right. I mean, they get the credit. Or what if they get it wrong? I usually, when I give extra credit, they get it wrong. I don't like it to count against them. Would that count against them if they got it incorrect?
So what this would do is it wouldn't. If they got it incorrect, it would not factor into their grade.
Okay, so it doesn't factor in then.
Correct.
Okay.
No. Yeah, it doesn't add into the total point value of the test. Okay. So short answers are listed here under the auto graded ones. So for this one, again, same kind of question text. You can put your question in here and then select, total point value. Now, for the short answers, you put what the answer text is. So if this is let's say a keyword or something like that, like a fill-in kind of question, you have this case sensitive flag. So if you select that it's case sensitive, and let's say it's a question like, something like that. We'll set this up as a 2-point question. And, if I put that as the answer, and this case sensitive flag is selected, the students will need to have the capital letter E for that to be correct. So if I uncheck that, and they could answer, and it could look like that, or it could have a capital or something like that. The only thing that you need to be aware of for these, it's nice that they're auto graded, but if a student has a typo or something, you might need to go back and just review them at the end just to see their responses. You might give partial credit, or you might give them full credit, depending on the student, depending on the situation, and depending on the spelling of the word. So I just wanted to mention that. As far as the other ones go, they are all pretty much a similar interface. Matching, again, you have the question text here. So, Diane, for your question about images and diagrams,
Mm-hmm.
matching one might be a good one for you. If you inserted a picture, and let's say it's parts of a cell A, B, C, D, E, you have it pointing to different parts. Down here in the question text, you could just put those letters, and then you could put what the correct answers would be for each letter. And then the students would have to fill in these, they would have to match based on that. Does that make sense?
So for a matching column, Brian, one column is under question text and one column is under answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Diane, for the diagrams, you could have, the picture with the letters and the corresponding parts, and the students could reference that and, use the letters and the terms. The other thing is up here in the question text, you could just say, match the term to the appropriate question or something like that. And then here you could, say, sorry, Diane, I was not a science person.
I'm sorry, Brett. I had to take a phone call on that. But I see what you're doing.
The nerve center of the cell, right?
I'm sorry, say that one more time. I can do this.
I kind of put myself on the spot there. I should have stuck to social studies. Um, but the one we all remember, right? What is the powerhouse of cell? That was the mitochondria, right?
Yeah, there you go.
So you
Mighty,
could
mighty.
use the only thing I remember from bio. So you could do it that way too. So if you wanted to put an image, you could correspond the letters with the terms.
Okay.
Or you could set it up this way, and this would be the way that, maybe Rob, for like vocabulary, you could do it that way too, where you have the definition and the term, and the students have to kind of match it up.
Yep.
That would be another way you could do this too. So
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing here is you're telling Sapphire, this is the question and this is the correct answer that goes along with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the students, this is then jumbled up, and they have to match the appropriate question to the correct answer.
So when we set up this matching column, we should put the correct answer opposite the question. It should be done correctly, and then it'll be mixed for the students.
Correct. Yep.
If we did the matching, we're only looking at, say, maybe 10 questions per page. Like I couldn't do 30. It'd be just too overwhelming for the kids.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 10, I think 10 would be good. Like thinking about the size of the iPad screen,
Right.
they would probably be able to see all 10 at once.
And if I put in one of these tests, I can go and look at it through my iPad pretty easily and see what the kids would more or less see.
Yeah. So over here on the left side, so let me save that question real quick. On the left, there is a preview button.
Yeah.
Yep. So then it takes you into a screen, and you could do this. I'm on my laptop right now, but you could do this on an iPad too.
Right.
And then let's see. Okay, so this is where we kind of put the questions so far. So you could type the questions in here, and I'll get this one wrong on purpose. And then it gives you the feedback. And then, so this is the students would pick from this drop down. So
Yeah.
So sorry, Joanne, I was wrong. Looking at this now, maybe you wouldn't want to line them up.
Brian, I think you copied one of my things, and I know I did a matching section. So
Okay.
if you want to see one with maybe more
options,
at least I think I saw
Yeah.
that was what you copied, Unit 11, complex numbers. I'm like,
that might have been the one.
fine. Hey, those questions look like my question names. So,
Let's see. Add a question from question bank. Yeah, I forget why I copied that one. It might have been for a demo, Olivia. I don't know. All right. So now, let's see. Oh, I can see over here. This one is. Oh, I don't have a matching. I don't think.
no, maybe not.
All right. Joanne, let me double check on that one.
Okay.
I don't want to tell you the wrong thing and then give all the kids an easy.
Well, I think what happens, because I did that too, I gave one of those matching portions on a test.
Yeah.
I had quite a few of them on there. It shows up on the teacher side is right across from each other, but I don't think it shows up on the student side, because when I hit preview the second time and I did that, it was different when
Did it jumble?
shuffled. Yeah, because I thought too, I'm like, oh my God, it's giving them the answer. They're right across from each other. I'm like, this is not going to work. So I know I did the same thing. I'm like, what is this now? I put all this in there and I have to change it.
Yeah.
But no, I think it just shows up on the teacher side like that. Double check to make sure, but I'm almost positive that's what it did, because I was freaking out. I'm like, you mean I just typed this all in there? No, I got to change it. I was not happy.
Yeah, I'll double check, but I can't see another way that they would know what the correct matching would be if you didn't set them across from each other like that. I think.
Oh, and a question, Brian, about the short answer there.
Mm-hmm.
When you do that, I mean, I went back over, I gave a couple short answer ones on one of these tests too on Sapphire. I did go back and check it, but if you want to have a sentence answer, if you want to have them require a sentence answer, like, okay, instead of the way your question is, what about the president belongs to which branch of government, that they have to turn it around and say the president belongs to the executive branch. is it just going to pull up executive or be able to see that to answer it? Although I did go back in to make sure the kid essentially had it right. And if it was partially correct, I gave him partial credit. If it was right, but it was just worded differently and it didn't recognize it, I gave him the full credit. So do you have to do that? What if you put the sentence in there, is it just going to say it has to be that, or?
Yeah,
How would that
it's going to look to match letter for letter.
Exactly. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I was
that's the
gonna
only
say-
trick. Sorry,
No.
who's that?
No, I was going to say, at least in math, I know I had a lot of times where if a kid put an extra space that I didn't have as an answer,
It marked it
text,
wrong.
it marked it wrong. So I had to
Yeah.
go back and check even just so much as they put an extra space, or I used, what I used as a minus sign, they used something different as a minus sign and it marked it wrong. So it's very particular. Like if you want even just a variation, you can add answers and have variations. And that's what I found was helpful.
Well, then
Sorry,
that's
Brian,
what
I
I'll
know that was
do.
your-
No,
That's what
that's
I'll do. But I did just go back and check them and make sure. And essentially, if the kid had it right, I just gave him the credit. So
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's when you do like Google Forms, they don't count short answers as a automatically graded one, and it's kind of nice that Sapphire does, but there are some tricks to it that way. And you're right, Olivia. You could add multiple answers, and it would match it among that group. But I think Marcia, like if you're going to require a sentence answer,
Yes.
it's going to go character by character, so it won't.
right. Well, it's fine. Like I said, I went back and I checked everyone, and if the kid essentially had it right, just because it's worded differently or whatever, I just gave it to him. So
Okay. Yeah, so that's, and then you would just kind of keep going question by question and keep adding them to the section or whatever they might be. Like I showed, you can preview it to kind of see what it would look like. So this is what the student's screen looks like when they pull up a test on their iPad. It doesn't say test preview, but it says begin test or close when the test is active. And then they would kind of go page by page. Now I don't have any questions here, but if I go to the next page, they would see these questions and the answer choices. And oh yeah, here we go. Marcia, you're right. Now it moved it down to B. So it will juggle the matching there. So you can always see what it looks like for the students, and then they would have this button over here to select finish. And what happens is, if I go color the sky and pick letter D, I get this feedback automatically. The students don't necessarily get that. That has to do with the preferences that you set up, which I'll show in a second. And then for the students, they can go back in at a later date and look at this. If you put feedback in here or anything like that, or if you give them any kind of feedback on their answers, they can go back and see that later. But one thing to notice is as soon as I click that option, it marked it as answered and saved that right away. So it is pretty instantaneous, even though the students won't necessarily see the feedback. As soon as they select an answer, it logs that was the answer that they selected. They don't have to save question by question or page by page or anything like that. It automatically saves it. And if they go back and change it, then it updates that. Again, they wouldn't necessarily see that they were correct or incorrect. This is just because it's the teacher's view. But just so you know what that looks like. So the other thing would be enable sorting. So you could, let me get rid of that. You can drag and drop and move these questions and reorder them within a section. You can also drag them and move them to a different group. So if I created a true and false question here, I can move it to another one. You don't have to delete it and recreate it or anything crazy like that. So you can sort them. The other thing over here on the left is the test attributes. So this is where you can go and you can change the scope of the test, or if you want to change the title or the description or anything like that. You can also preset general feedback for questions if they're marked as correct or incorrect. If you have any general feedback that you want to give, otherwise you can do on a question by question level. All right, so now I'm going to go back here to the main My Tests page. So like I said before, these are all kind of like draft tests. So from here, what you would need to do is go to assign it. You could always go back in and edit questions if you wanted to add to it later. You can preview it from here and even delete it if you want to. But if you go here to assign the test, you can select the classes that you want to assign it to. I have all my VHS ones that show up here too. But you can select multiple sections if you wanted to give it to a couple different sections of the same class or whatever it might be. And then you have your options for each course here. The testing opening and closing window. So this is when it's visible for students. If you leave this blank, testing open window, if you leave that blank, as soon as you save this, it's visible to students. So you do want to make sure that you set a date, and you can use the sliders down here to set a time. So you can select when that'll be visible to students, and they'll get a little notification at the top of their Sapphire page for your class page that a test is available for them to take. The test closing window is when that notification disappears. So it's no longer visible on their class page. So let's say that I set this for today at, let's say it opens at 10 o'clock. And let's say it closes today at 11. There we go. So what this means when I set it up this way is they'll get a link. It'll be visible on their community portal webpage at 10 a.m. It'll tell them that they have a test for me. And at 11 a.m., that notification will go away. If they access the test at 10:59, they can get into the test and they have the full time limit. So let's say I give them 45 minutes to take the test. They have from 10:59 plus 45 minutes to 11:44 to finish the test. So just so everybody knows kind of how that time limit works, that window opening and closing. So for the visible and portal, you want to show that. So that's how they'll see the link. Single sitting completion. So if that's set to yes, that means they have to, once they start the test, they have to complete it and submit it before they're allowed, or if they don't, then they can't get back into it. Display correct answers once test is visible for review. So this is you as the teacher, once the tests are graded and you virtually give them back to the students, this will allow them to see the correct answers in addition to their incorrect answers. So you can set that one to yes. Display immediate question feedback. That's what we were seeing when I was going through the teacher view, how as soon as I click it, it tells me that the question was right or wrong, or the answer rather was right or wrong. So for this one, you probably would want to say no. So that's why that's the default.
And Brian, if you say yes there, will it allow them to change their answer then if they see it got wrong?
Yeah, they might be able to.
Okay.
I've never really done it as a yes. And I could see maybe using it if it's like a formative assessment or a self-check kind of thing, but I've only ever used it as an actual test.
Okay.
But I would think it would be pretty similar to what I just did with the demo.
Okay.
So I would say probably. And then once you set these things up, you can copy these settings to the other courses that are here. So you only have to do it once. You don't have to go tab by tab to set these open and close windows. Which, now that I'm thinking about that out loud, you would have to at least adjust the open and close time probably to match up with your class section and the time that they meet. The other thing over here on the right is you can attach this to an assignment in your grade book. So if you create the assignment in your grade book for the test with the due date and everything else, you can select and attach it. So when you start to grade the test, the student grades already populate for you. It's already there. So that's a little bit of a time saver for you. If you need to, you can just create an assignment from here. All right. So then all you would have to do is click submit, and then this would be assigned to those classes. I'm just going to go back here. I'm not actually going to assign that, but if I go to, okay. So if I go to tests, mine isn't always the best example because I haven't given any last year, but this assign test tab. So once you assign a test, it moves it. So it would disappear from here and it would be moved over here to your assigned tests. And then this is where you would see the start and end date, the students who complete it and that kind of thing. The assignment options, you can edit these again. So you can kind of go back and change these things if you need to, the open and close time, that kind of stuff. And if you select the course name, you'll see the test. And if you click on class details, okay, you can see the status of the tests here. So let me reopen that, go backwards a little bit. Okay. So you would have a lot more students. This is just a VHS class. I use Luke as a demo for a lot of stuff because this doesn't really affect anything for him. So what you would see is the student name, the date and the time that they started the test, and the status. So right now, I went backwards a little bit so we could see what it would look like in the beginning. And you can modify these on a student by student level here at the override. So if you have a student who sees, let's say Dana or Mary Lou, and they need more time, you could give them extra time on their test. If you have a student who was absent and couldn't take the test, you can go in here and on a student by student level reopen the test. Just make sure that the open and close window match up. We had some teachers who would go and change the test to, let's say, move it to the 10th, but it closed on the 9th, so the students still couldn't see it. So these have to match up in time. And then if you have to make any notes here for the override, this is just more for your own record keeping. If you need to know that like the student was absent on the day of the test, or if the student receives extra time or something like that, you could put that in there, but it's optional. And then you would just apply and those changes would be made. So if you were reopening the tests, the student would be able to see them. Once the students take the test, and it'll give you a start date and an end date, you can end the test and it'll move it to this next, it almost moves it to like the next phase where you can go and you can manually grade. So it'll auto grade the questions that can be auto graded. You can go in here and you can override grades. If you think that this is a poor question, you can assign points to it, or if it's an open-ended question, this is where you would be able to assign points, and then you would be able to save those things. And then when you finish, you mark it as grading complete, and when you do that, it would put those grades in your grade book if it's attached to an assignment, and it would also return it for the students so that they could see any feedback as well as, and possibly the correct answers depending on your settings.
When you click grading complete, and if you've attached the assignment, it goes right into the grade book. Does that have to be the same time when students see what the correct grades are? Do you release them at the same time? Because I know on Google Forms you can't link them together, but you can put the grades in the grade book, but not necessarily release the correct answers in their tests at the same point.
Right. So here, what you would do is when you mark it as complete, it would copy to the grade book and it would release it at the same time. Joanne, is you probably wouldn't mark the grading as complete until all the students have submitted their tests and everybody was graded.
One student hasn't finished yet, you wouldn't do that because then the correct answers would be out to the rest of the class.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's almost the same concept as how we don't pass the test back until all the students have taken the test. Same idea there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Any other questions on Test Builder or anything while we're in here?
Well, if you do that, Brian, about the grading complete, will the grades still go in there that they could see, okay, I got a 98 out of 100, but it just doesn't show up on there as far as them having access to the test.
I don't know if there's a way to.
That's what I'm saying. If there's a way for them to see the grade but not see the test.
No, I don't think so. The only thing you could do would be for you to manually enter all the numbers in the
Okay.
grade book
Right. That's
and
the only other way.
not mark grading is complete, which would kind of defeat the purpose. The other thing you could do, I'm just thinking out loud here. When we go to, let me go back a level to the test builder here and look at the settings. You could do this and not display the correct answers.
Okay, so you could put no for all those last 4, and then they can't see anything as far as that. Now, would they still be able to see the test, but just not see the correct answer?
So they would see the test and they would see the answer. They wouldn't see all the correct answers, but if they answered a question correctly,
Then they'd know
saw
that
that they got credit for it, they'd be able to hopefully deduce that that was the correct answer.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. But,
You don't know
now I at least know that they can actually see that and have access to that, which.
Brian.
Yeah, Olivia.
Say you go through, you make your test, you assign it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not asking this like it occurred for me at all. But you go through, you assign a test, you give the test, you get to grading the test, and you notice that you put in something as correct, or like you forgot an answer. Like, so say one of your questions, you forgot to mark what the correct answer was, or you marked the correct answer as something else. Is there a way after you've already assigned the test and they've taken it to go back and edit the test and change what the correct answer should be, or assign a correct answer? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think if you, let me go back one.
Not like this happened to me on multiple occasions.
Yeah. But I mean, it happens all the time, even when we do just paper and pencil.
Mm-hmm.
So here I'm looking at the assign test tab.
Okay.
And under the course, there is the option to edit questions. So I think if you were to go in here and edit the question and change the answer for which one is correct,
Okay.
I don't know. Once it's assigned,
I can't change it.
Yep.
Okay. I couldn't find a spot, so.
The only thing you can
might
do is
just be
add.
better off giving them an extra point on their grade manually in the grade book. That happened to me once or twice where somebody said, well, it could be A or C, and I said, yeah, you're right. So I just go back and give the kids that had the other answer correct, because otherwise you're going to drive yourself nuts.
Yeah.
No, definitely, there was a bonus question that was not meant to be a bonus question for at least 1 or 2 assignments where I'm like, oh, because I forgot to put a point value in. So, and I couldn't find a way to add the point value later. So they got a bonus point and their luck. So, but okay, cool. I was just curious if I missed that or if it was just non-existent. It's non-existent.
Yeah, that was non-existent.
Oh, great. Pregnancy brain. Let's pray for that one. Okay.
Anybody else? Other questions in Test Builder? Okay. So the other question we got was about homework and stuff like that. So I'm just going to go to one of my classes here where I actually have. But as far as other things go, there hasn't really been many updates or changes to what you can add to the page. The announcements, files, links to websites, that kind of stuff is still pretty much the same. I did see used once or twice the subheading, which I thought was kind of neat now that we're thinking about using this a lot more. One teacher they created a section kind of like I have here, like with student information, but they created these subheadings within the section. So it had things like study guides, or it had textbook information. So they had these bigger subsections within that heading of, like, for me, student information. Or if I was going to do my unit 1 and my description, I could have a heading of PowerPoint notes and a heading of worksheets or a heading of, you know, test information and something like that, whatever it might be, to kind of break that up a little bit, because this can be a little daunting and overwhelming for students. So the way that we organize it can be pretty helpful too. Was there anything on the class pages or anything like that that anyone wanted me to go over or mention? I know we really got a good crash course in that in the spring.
Brian, is that where the our lesson plans are going to be? Because they're going to be like the task list like we had for this last semester. Are they going to be put on the class page in its own section, like the lesson plan section, or
As far as
should
I
it go
know,
week by week chunk, or?
yeah, as far as I know, that idea of like taking your like the lessons and putting them on there, that's still the plan. I don't think, like how we have when you go into the lesson planner,
Mhm.
I don't think there's a way for us to change this what they call a card, this lesson plan card, where you have these little fields that you fill out. I don't think there's a way for us to change that to match the format that we had here. This might be modified a little bit, but
No, I thought we were going to be, this was going to become the new standard template.
That is
right.
what Karen said. This is going to be
Yep.
the new standard template. So
Yep. So we'll use this. Now, as far as where we post it, I'm assuming, I'd have to double check, but I'm assuming it's just going to be posted as a file upload or something like that to your page. I don't think we're able to use the lesson planner to do that, but I could be wrong because I didn't create the lesson planner. That was Karen and maybe Charlie who did that, the old one that we used to use. So they might be working on another template. I'm not sure. Like within this lesson planner. Otherwise, I would say we're going to continue on what we did before.
Because if we use that old lesson planner template, like where it is on Sapphire, we can make that visible to parents and students, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as far as I know, I think we're continuing on with this. I mean, we're definitely continuing with this format, but in terms of how we post it or share it with students, that's the part I'll have to double check.
Brian, would you think it would be easier for students if there was a whole section that was like lesson plans week by week that we added to, or just made a new section for every week along with any information they might need for that week? Like, what do you think would be easier for them to see? I mean, during this past semester, I think what I did was just make each week had its own new section. So it had the lesson plan for the week, and then any assignments or outside reading they might need for the week was all attached in that block, and then a new block for the next week. Do you think that's clearest to do it like that?
Yeah, I think that would be good. I'm trying to think of like how it would look for a student, on their iPad screen. If you do a section of just lesson plans and then a section of the unit information, they're going to have to scroll back and forth between those two different things. So, I think a week by week, a section of, for week 1, September 1st to September 4th or whatever it is, lesson plans, back to school information, whatever it is, would be kind of nice, because then you can add the next one. Students could scroll up to the next level, and this would be week 2, and then everything they need for that. So that could work. If that's what works for you. The other thing is, I know some people do, slides for an entire unit, then that might span 3 weeks. So that organizational strategy might not work for them. But if that works for you, and I think that would be a good way to do it.
Or you can always refer them back on the second week or third week, like a reminder, slides are listed on week 1.
Mm-hmm. Or you could post them again.
We'll post them again.
While you're working on the section, you could do that too.
Right.
Yeah, that could be an option. Let's think.
So pretty much the Sapphire Dropbox probably will not be used, at least like for my work, because I'm not doing math or science. It would all go through Turnitin, unless they had a project with slides or something else.
Right. Yeah, like that one that you did at the end of the year where they did
Yes.
the audio recording.
Thank you
You
for
know.
all your help with that.
Oh yeah. But that's probably one that would have to go in the Dropbox.
Okay.
But yeah, anything that's text, like a Word document or a Google Doc, can go in Turnitin.
Okay.
Well,
Anybody
thanks,
else? Other
Brian.
questions on?
I gotta go. Everybody
Oh, yeah,
have
no
a
problem.
great day.
All right, thanks,
again.
Marcia.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye, Marcia.
Yeah. Anything else? Anybody wants to go over or anything like that?
No, this has been really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Getting lots of options to figure out what's going to work best for each of us. And I think that's a great idea.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. If anybody has any questions, just let me know.
Brian, I have a quick question for the
Sure.
for our class page, that block in the top that has our name and classroom.
Up
Can
there, yeah.
that be, that's still there to be pushed over, or does it have to be created again for this year? Like this.
That should be able to be brought over from one year to the next. And I'm going to work on videos to kind of show the teachers how to. Last year I did it with everybody in the room, but we have a couple other things to go over for the new year. So I'm just gonna make a couple different little videos, one for each topic, and then on your own time, hopefully even before that week of school. If you want to, you can just copy that over. But yes, the course information should be one of the fields that you're allowed to select and push over to the new school year.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.